16th Colossus from Shadow of the Colossus. This is a game that is literally entirely about big bosses. The goal of the game is specifically to hunt down and defeat 16 gigantic enemies spread across this desolate place called the Forbidden Land. Kronos from God of War 3. The third game in the God of War series is pretty much all about spectacle. In it, Kratos, the perpetually angry Spartan warrior, invades Mount Olympus, killing every god and hero he can get his hands on, usually in some shockingly brutal way. Nearly every boss battle in the game is totally nuts, but one of the craziest is probably Kronos. 8 is Zora Magdaros from Monster Hunter World, another series all about fighting giant monsters, and in terms of size, they're not usually Godzilla size, but they're big, except for this big boy from Monster Hunter World, Zora Magdaros, a monster crossed with a volcano. Number 7 is Adamantis from Final Fantasy 15. If you thought the previous entry was big, get a load of this. Adamantis is a staple enemy from the series, and while it's generally pretty large, it didn't get absolutely enormous in this manner until Final Fantasy 13, but it seems clear that they really wanted to top themselves this time around. They went totally crazy here. Look at this. Number 6 is the Matrix Path of Neo Megasmith. In comparison to some of the other examples on this list, this boss isn't quite as huge, but when it lacks in pure size, it easily makes up for in what? Like WTF factor? Like just Ibis Jubileus from Bayonetta. When we start entering God territory, that's when the bosses are getting pretty big. Pretty much every boss in Bayonetta is oversized, but nothing's quite the size of the final boss. Jubileus, the creator. Some kind of Judeo-Christian avatar of creation or something. Best not to think about it too much because the game doesn't. Basically, this thing wants to remake the world because that's what gods want to do, it seems like. And you gotta stop it, and that involves riding a motorcycle up the side of a rocket while it's traveling into space and then punching him into the dragon god from Demon's Souls from Software's Soulsborne games. I mean, boss fights are a huge thing in them. So it's kind of surprising the biggest one they've ever had is actually in the game that started all of them. The experimental nature of the game is kind of on full display. Wonderful 101, Jaringa. The best games know the power of a good finale, and some of them save the absolute best for last, allowing themselves to just go completely over the top in the final moments. And the Wonderful 101, which is already a ridiculous game, really goes to the next level for its final boss. If you can't even tell what's supposed to be happening here, then just follow along. What makes this game unique is that you play as a swarm of superheroes called the Warriors 4. Normally, the Earth Defense games are more about numbers than size. Most of the enemies you fight are big, but we're mostly talking about stuff like giant ants and bugs and like the occasional robot. Usually that's about as big as things get, not counting the odd Godzilla-sized monster. 1, in Asura's Wrath, Chakravartin. Now we had to eventually look at Asura's Wrath, right? There's no other game out there that goes beyond the impossible like this one. It's a game that starts out with your dude fighting a monster the size of a continent, and it escalates from there. One of the first true bosses you take on grows to be as big as the entire planet, and that guy pales in comparison to the true final boss of the game. Chakra